Just excited. This is what I want to know.
Awesome. I'm so glad. Welcome to live coding CSS. We're going to be doing the this page from the Quizlet site. And hopefully we get an idea of maybe how some of these things are put together. So first thing I want to do is just kind of get an idea of what elements do we have on this page. So like I would call all the area in blue, that's probably like a header. This white area is like a main area, and this is a footer. You'll find that this is really common. It's not the only way we can do it, but awful lot of sites have some kind of header, main, and footer kind of area. Some other things to take note of. With all three of these, we're kind of constraining the left and right a little bit. And that holds true all the way through down to the bottom, all the way through down there. So we've got some boundaries that kind of exist in here also. We have two colors. We have this purple, and then we have this accent color. So it's being used right there for the sign up. Oh, there's a third color. And also for these links there. So when you hover over them, those change. We have three colors. And then the rest of it is different kinds of grays. Some other stuff to welcome.
Can't miss Kyle's CSS lesson. Woo!
Some other things that I kind of want to make note of. What sort of action do we have on the z-axis? So like our third dimension here. These have drop shadows and rounded corners, but otherwise it's relatively flat. And like within a card, yeah, I'm not seeing anything jumping out. But we do have just a little bit of dimension with these. They sort of look like they're floating on top of the page. Everything else is relatively flat.
So is that like drop shadow for verbs? Is that just like a border with like a blurry line, or is it like a drop shadow?
It's a drop shadow. It's its own thing.
Okay.
And we'll see how to do those. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to do this as a view app, but the view part of it isn't important. It's just going to give me SAS for free. So do view create Quizlet.
Did we talk about SAS a little bit? Are you going to go into that or no?
You'll get the things that I'll do with SAS in this are like not that complicated. I think you'll be able to pick up on it from context pretty well. Really, the only thing I need here is this. Cool. So I'll set all this up. Cool. We go into Quizlet and let's set nav up. All right, so I got that running on 8080. Sweet. So next thing I'm going to do is just delete some boilerplate. They give you a bunch of stuff for free that we don't actually need. Don't need it. 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 Good. Cool. So we go back over here and we can throw that header, main, footer thing in here and throw an H1 for Quizlet. All right. Oops, something I didn't like. All right, cool. So now, first step is going to be, let's get the content right. So I've got the name of the app there. And so next thing I'm thinking is like, what other ways can I sort of subdivide this? So if all of this is the header, what other things do I have going on here? So I've got the name of the app, I got this search bar, I have some kind of action that I can take there, and then I have login and sign up. Yeah.
I mean, is that your top nav?
Yeah, so it's kind of a nav, but I don't think I like calling that a nav semantically.
Well, why would you semantically call it that?
Something that has navigation options. Like neither of these are navigation options.
Okay.
This is search, this is an action. Those navigate you somewhere. I don't really think of that as
I don't know why,
the
but
same
I have
thing.
browse on my header, in my nav, on the exact same page as you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just like right here.
You might be logged in.
Yeah, no, I'm not even logged in.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I have browse.
Weird.
So I think it's like an app.
It might be based off the OS, or are you both on Windows?
I'm on Mac.
I'm not on the Mac. Yeah, but yeah, I just have like that also. It's like the exact same, except I also have browse. I don't have an account.
How strange.
Yeah, it could be user agent sniffing. Could be lots of things. All right. I can't think of a more specific thing to call that, which makes it a div. And that process that I just did is about what I want you to do before you use a div ever. Is like, what else could this reasonably be? If you can't come up with anything else, div is fine, but like put some thought into it. And I'm going to say that the class, let's give it a name. I call it the top bar. Yes. So the thing I don't like about top bar is this is like specifying a pretty particular visual thing. We want to keep it semantic. So primary actions might be better. And maybe I'll put the H1 inside of that. Then this search here. So you click on that and it turns into that. So that's really a button that says magnifying glass search And then we have another button that says create. Okay, create icon. And then we have a button for log in and one for sign up. Cool. So let's see if we can get it to look like this, because it certainly doesn't right now. Okay, first thing, let's get this color. Actually, I want to see how close I can get to guessing this. So this is also like a cool thing you can do with CSS. So I'll say primary, let's see, app header. So if you haven't used Sass before, this is the first cool thing you can do. You can nest selectors like this. And this is just like if there was a space between them.
Oh, okay.
But so that's the same. That's going to compile down to that.
Kind of like you can nest tags, or not tags, but elements in
There you go. Exactly. So you can make them kind of match up. So I'm going to use a tool called HSL, Hue Saturation Light, and see how close I can get to guessing this color. So it's a bluish kind of thing. The hue is 0 is red, 360 is red, and it goes red, green, blue. This is sort of bluish. So I'm going to start with 240. And then saturation, 100% is Ronald McDonald, 0% is grayscale. This is probably right about in the middle, so let's start with 50%. And then lightness is how much white versus how much black. I'm also going to say that's kind of in the middle, so let's try 50% for that too. 240, 50%, 50%.
Nice.
Not bloody bad. So we'll look at what else we'd have to do. This looks a little bit lighter than what I have and maybe a little bit less saturated. So if we knock that down to 40 and bump this up to 60, maybe keep the saturation. Okay, that's better. Actually, what if I go up a little bit on saturation? I'm going to rotate the hue a little bit towards red. Oh, it's too much. So if we go the other way, that's a little bit better. Yeah, that doesn't suck. So next thing, Corey and I were just talking about it. The reason that I still have all this space around this is the browser style sheet. I don't want the browser style sheet. I want to reset it out. So Mire reset's a good place to start with that. This will defeat most browser default styles. So we just copy that. I'm going to put that in a file, source Mictor source styles, and then touch source styles underscore reset dot SCSS. Go into that file and just copy this whole thing in. Then to include that, I always forget how to do this. View SCSS import. At import. And then styles, reset. All right, let's see if it worked. Nope, something didn't like about it. Does it need a semi? There we go. Cool, so styles are reset. Neat, goes the whole way across now. So I'm gonna grab the actual value for this background. Background.
Oh, somebody use the color picker tool at the top right of your.
Oh yeah. Cool, so that copied a hex value. I still don't like hex values, so we go hex to HSL. And paste that in. Hey, I was kind of in the ballpark.
Wow, that's really close.
Yeah. So this is one thing I like about HSL is you can do brain math with this and get in the ballpark. I've been doing this a long time. I can't do hex math. Like if I need to make something a little bit lighter, no clue how to do that.
Could you explain it one more time?
Yep. First thing is the hue. What color is it? What's the base color? And it's in a circle. 0 is red, 360 is red, and then otherwise it goes red, green, blue. And then saturation, Ronald McDonald, grayscale. White, black.
Where is that on the circle, the second number? Does that go like closer to the inside of the circle? I'm imagining that color wheel.
We'll look at the color wheel. Nope, that's not a color wheel. It's a different thing than these, because this is lightness, but this doesn't have black, because black would be all the way like out this other direction. And saturation's a different thing.
Okay.
It's not really showing on there. All right, so awesome. I've got that. Also, everything in this header is reversed out. So you can make that white. Cool. Next thing is let's try to pinch the typeface. This is like #1 thing you can do to make your app look less like shit, and nobody does it. So let's figure out the family. I think we have maybe 2 different typefaces there. Like those are the same typeface, but I think that might be different than these. But both of them are serif type, or sans serif typefaces, because these don't have little feet on them. Standard sans serif. Let's see what Google Fonts has for us. So I want a sans serif font, and go with one with kind of a lot of styles. That usually helps. All right, so that could be maybe a little bit Montserrat-y. Railway. Yeah. That could very well be.
Can we type the thing into the type something, or is that cheating?
Just look it up in the CSS.
No, just like go look at, or just type in like, what was it, like learn Spanish or whatever it is?
I think to the right.
In the box to the right, the Spanish flashcards.
Yeah, the middle box, not that search box.
This?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Spanish flashcards. Good call. And then up the size a little bit. We also need the weight to go up. Can we do that? Shoot, I don't think it'll let me do it by weight.
Yeah, only like inside a particular font.
So I'm kind of feeling Railway. Let's see what it actually is. Herm. Nope. Let's try this one. Oh, that one's the same too. Herm #2 web font. Herm #2. Geometric Sans. I'm going to go with Railway. I think it's probably an okay free alternative. And then if I bring that guy in, actually, make sure I have a couple weights of this too. So I'll grab that. And say that let's see, font family is Railway, and then fall back to sans serif. Okay, not bad. And then I'm going to up the weight a little bit on the H1. It's maybe too much. Is there a 5? Nope. I need something kind of in between those. And the size needs to come up a little bit. Font size is 24 pixels. Maybe too much. 20. Cool. And then how many different sizes? This does have a 500 and a 600. So you can just edit the URL for that. Every one of those you do takes longer for the font to load, but we're just having fun. We're just having fun on the internet here. Okay. There we go. That's kind of in the ballpark. All right, so next thing. Think about the padding that we have in here. I'm zoomed in a little bit. So, we still have this part to consider. I'm going to say that the entire thing, let's see, how about padding is, start with 16 pixels on top, and then, start there. Okay. Yeah, it's about in the ballpark. Not bad. We'll work on that centering in a sec too. Actually, shit, no, exactly. Okay, next thing. Let's get a Glyph library in to handle these icons. This is easier than it looks also. So if I say font awesome CDN, and pull in a oops, not that, this. Copy link tag. I throw this in here. Neat. That should give me access to Font Awesome. Font Awesome is a Glyph library. Glyph libraries are just collections of icons. So for example, things like that magnifying glass. Search. I love it. So if we go there, it'll give us an example of how to do this. I class FAS, FA search. Let's see it. This is I class FAS, FA search. See if that works. Nope. Sometimes you can't use the solid one. Is it in there? Let's element inspect it. Does it need a size? Nope, that's not it. Sometimes you have to do this differently in View. Let me try a different CDN. Still nothing, huh? Come on. The FAS again. No, that's not it. Why? Using Font Awesome CDN. Oh, I might need to restart my server. Maybe that's it.
You put the code inside of your HTML.
Mm-hmm. Kind of sworn I don't. You actually use the solid one though. Yep, that's in there.
Yeah, you have to take, it's a link like that, and you have to plug it in.
Yeah, I did. It's right there.
Okay, yeah.
Let's try this one. There we go. All right. So have glyphs showing up now. Let's see, what does it say? Those need to be white also. So all the buttons in here also have a color of white, and have no border. And background color of HSL-A. So the A is an alpha channel. It lets you do transparent. So I could say I don't give a shit, but I want it to be fully transparent. There we go. All right, so now I have some transparent buttons there. Let's see what else. So all of those buttons kind of have the same sort of typeface. It's heavy, and anytime you're reversing, it's one of those tricks you were talking about. Anytime you're reversing out text like this, you usually have to kick up the weight a little bit to keep it readable. So it's like, it looks like a little bit thicker of a typeface. Or sorry, a little bit thicker of a font, but a little bit smaller of a size. So for each of these buttons, what if we say font size is 12 pixels, and font weight is 500. It's smaller than that. 9 pixels. There we go. It's a little better. It looks like all of these icons have a little bit of margin that pushes over the words too. So like that magnifying glass and the search word are right next to each other, but they're kind of not over here. So we could say that icons in here have a margin right of 16 pixels maybe. Too much. Still too much. Better. Let's bring that down to 400. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Okay, so that create one also going to have an icon, and this one we might not be able to get an exact one for free, but it's like a new. Awesome. So if I look up new, the free ones are the ones that aren't grayed out. I'm gonna go with folder plus. That's probably about as close as we're gonna get. Nothing. Might not be in that version of it. What about plus square? All right, cool, that'll work. All right, so that's in the ballpark. And then the other thing that's true is, okay, so when we hover over those, they kind of turn gray, except not really. Let's zoom in really close on that. That's sort of a gray. It has the effect of being gray. But it also has a touch of this color mixed in also. I don't think that's a pure gray. So, all right. Then down here, I say when a button is hovered over, and in SAS, like we do that in regular CSS with something like button hover, and then do some stuff. We can actually put that inside of the button class and change this to ampersand. Does the same thing, but it keeps all those together, which I think is beautiful.
Ampersand kind of like this or like a sub.
Exactly, it's exactly what it is. So we can change the background color. Let's use the background color of the header. Like that. And then we can do something like try to make this gray. So like one way to do that might be to completely desaturate it, but otherwise keep it the same. Oops, it's the actual color. Feels too much. Yeah, it's a little bit lighter than that. Okay. Yeah, that's in the ballpark. I'll take it. The other thing you'll notice is that when you hover over this, it immediately switches, but this, it like kind of fades in and out a little bit. That's called a transition. And so you do that with transition, and then you say what you want to transition, in this case color. You could also say all for everything, and then how long it should take. So that's probably about 0.2 seconds. Maybe not, maybe a little slower than that. There we go.
Can you explain a little bit more about the transition? Because I use the
Mhm.
transitions,
Yep.
but you have to give the, so there's the pseudo selector, that's the hover,
Mm-hmm.
but then the actual element has, I use transition duration,
Mm-hmm.
but transition is kind of like an all for like all types of transitions, is that what it is?
It's every transition property in one rule. So yeah, there's all kinds of like transition duration, transition it's probably shape or something like that. It's type, where you can say, should it happen linearly? Should it happen on like a Bezier curve? Lots of different things you can do it. Also, you can jam them all into one property with transition.
Thank you.
Transition is, I think, called a meta property for that reason. All right, so we can do that. Not bad.
Looks good.
And then we need something for this sign up button. The sign up button works differently. So we'll say sign up. Cool. So I want a way to target that one specifically. And this is also kind of neat. I could say and dot sign up in here, and that'll target buttons with the class of sign up. It helps you like further just kind of keep that stuff together. So this one does have a different background color entirely. And it will also have its own different kind of hover thing. But, all right, so let's see if we can just kind of guess our way to this teal first. So where should I start on that?
Probably where color wheel goes?
Yeah, like, well, I don't know, you tell me. I know this color. This color like probably has some kind of relationship with it.
Maybe greener, whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
Greener, lighter, it's definitely lighter.
Definitely lighter.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more towards green.
Not so saturated.
And like, And I don't know, it looks like it's about in the middle of saturation. All right, that gives us a place to start. So if I say that the background color on this so this is B, R, G. So it's a little bit more towards G. So I'm going to take some, maybe rotate off of that. Actually, I'm going to lighten it up first. How about? If I make that like a 78. All right. Definitely needs to be more green. So if I make that like a 200. All right. Let's get there. Bring this back down. Okay. I keep going towards green. All right, all right. So I think the saturation, you might be able to keep the same there. 46 there, and it's 46 here. Maybe that lightness is the same too, and it's just the hue that changes. That's a little too green probably. Back over here. Okay, it is lighter than that. So maybe I knock that upward a little bit. I think it's more saturated than that. There we go. That's not bad. So this one also has a little bit of breathing room in it. One of the things, it's like a general visual design principle, is the closer something is to like a border around it, the more intense it feels. It makes you like stressed a little bit. Creates a lot of energy, which is not at all what we're trying to do here. So we give it a little bit of space.
Sign up now.
But that's also true when you put something like really close to an edge like that. There's a lot of tension in that gets released when you let it come in from the side. Okay, so that's too much. It's about right on the sides, but it's too much on top. And so you can actually do these separately for top and bottom like this. So this will be top and bottom, left and right. And that looks a lot better. So next thing here is these corners are radiused. So let's say that actually basically any button that we have on here probably should have this radius. So you do that with border radius and it's a pretty slight one. Let's try 12 pixels. Too much. Let's try 3 pixels. That's like just a little bit too much. Okay, that's better. With respect to the Quizlet folks, I am like pretty sure that this is not accessible. It's like it's a little worse on mine, but white on like light teal, that is a hell of a color choice. A little bit better, like that's perfect, but weird. All right, I want to see what they actually picked. There. That's the yellow. Let's try the color dropper. Okay, so I got that. Hex to HSL. So it's here. Not fucking bad, huh?
That's pretty good.
The old man still got it. Very nice. Okay, so that is that's a little bit better. So now I want, when I hover, two things change. When I hover, this changes and the background color changes. So I need a different transition. Actually, if I just change the transition here to all, you can have multiple properties there. You can also give them different amounts of time, but fuck it. If any property on this transitions, it should probably take about the same amount of time. So I'll say everything uses 0.3 seconds. And when this hovers, the color changes and the background color changes. So this has that like yellow, red, green, blue. So this is going to be between red and green. Let's start with like 10. Okay. All right, it's not bad. And then I'll bet that what they're doing for the color on this is like really close to that, but darker. So if we just like dump this out pretty far, so just something like this. Because, yeah, it's not bad. So like a trick for getting these to look okay is the same thing we were doing here. That's not a pure gray. It actually might even just be this background color here. But a really common trick is just take a really dark version of whatever this color is, and that ends up sitting really nicely on top of it. But I have a hunch that's actually just the purple. So if I take that, move that down here, let's see what this looks like. No, I don't like it. Cool, that's better. All right, let's see what it actually was. Oop. Anybody know? Oh no, I'm over this. I can't get it to turn yellow. Anybody know how I make it stay yellow?
Control.
Hmm?
Change like 50. What also gives you the background color on there?
That's probably it. But that doesn't make it stay yellow. This, on the other hand, lets you permanently toggle that state.
Oh, that's nice.
Tricks.
That is nice.
We should have a class on using this thing.
It's a hell of a tool. So now I can. Is awesome.
Does SAS like compile to CSS?
That's exactly what it does. I was a little bit further off on this one. That's fine. Lightness is about right. Cool. So we do that one, and then I'll make my color just like I did on the other one based on that. Define. There we go. And just dump a bunch out of that. Oop. Ah. Gotta have those semis, not optional. Cool. That's pretty good. All right, so couple other things for this top bar. One is we have these little strokes here and here. So easiest way to implement those is probably as borders. Yeah, so let's do that. We'll say that the bottom of the header is a border bottom of like 2 pixels. It's solid. And we can do a color that's based on this one. HSLs are so nice. We can do something like this that's just darkened. So if I make that 18, it's too much. It's a little bit better. That might be about right. That's even lighter than that. That's the same color. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, not bad. And then before we do this other one, let's get the layout kind of okay. Because right now, like all these need to be on the same line, and we got to figure out how we're going to space them like this. So, few different things we can do. All of them involve flex. So let's start by flexing the entire header. If I'm looking at this header, I actually kind of want to flex 2 things. I'm going to flex the div inside the header. I'm going to flex each of these inside of primary actions. Let's start with that primary actions one though. Header. Primary actions. Display flex. Okay, so now they're all in the same line. That helps. And there's a couple things happening here that we need to kind of account for. So these are grouped here and here. So that sort of begs a question around semantically, why? Why are those visually grouped differently? And the thing that I come back to is like they're implying different things. These are specifically account actions, and these are like content actions. Yeah. Yeah. So my natural inclination is to put these in some kind of container and put these in some kind of container and then flex them apart. We'll see what that'll look like. If I go These don't even need to have classes or names or anything, although they probably should. If I do something like that and then say that primary actions flexes and justifies their content as space between, I'll bet that spreads them out. Yeah. Okay. So then, next thing we have to figure out is get these back on the same line. Figure out how we semantically group these. So let's give it a shot. I'm gonna make one more division here and start giving these some names, like content actions versus account actions. Yeah. Okay, we're still in business. And then I need a good name for this one. So this is the content actions plus the heading. Ooh, it's tricky. So this is kind of where you cheat on semantics a little bit. This does not have any semantic meaning besides how it's presented. And so I don't like that. Like if we were doing this header differently, I wouldn't have this div. But CSS being what it is, sometimes you have to cheat a little bit. All right, so content actions with heading, content actions, account actions. So what if I flex content actions with heading?
Just to clarify,
Yeah.
so far the only thing that is display flexed is the primary actions
Correct.
container, right?
Yep. So this primary action container is flexing things apart. It can only flex its direct children, which are this and this.
Okay.
Those are spread out. So now content actions with heading also needs to get flexed. So content actions with heading. Flex that also. All right.
And that syntax right there, is that like stats that you just did, like the content actions with heading, or can you do that in regular CSS and just put that right inside of another?
This is a SAS specific thing.
Okay,
You can
cool.
nest selectors like this.
Okay, I see.
So we got, and when this compiles to real CSS, it's going to be header space primary actions space dot content actions with heading, and then this rule in it.
Okay.
It's just a shorthand for that.
Cool.
All right, so everything's on the same line now. All right. Now to make it look more like that, couple things. First, I want to do this thing that we talked about originally, where we're constraining the width of this a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is all of this like actual shit is primary actions. So if I target primary actions and set a max width on that, that's probably 800 pixels. And then I flex the entire header and do justify content center. All right, we're in the ballpark. What if I, yeah. if I don't max that, if I do it like this. All right, so this is kind of what I'm talking about. We can probably use like a media query or something like that to make sure that there's at least 800 pics of space to do this in. But now we're kind of getting in the ballpark. Looks like it's a little bit more than that, but not a ton. It's a little bit too much. There we go. 900 pixels. So next thing I'm thinking about is the Quizlet one probably wants to push these actions over. So if I go back to my H1, I can give that a margin right of 36 pixels. Okay.
Why not make a padding right? I sometimes don't know which I want to do.
Sure. So there we go. So the trick, padding versus margin is, do I want to push something else out of the way, or do I want more space for myself?
Okay.
Another like more concrete way to think about that is, if this had a different background color than this, should that background color also be over here? And if not, it's margin.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Sort of getting there. So next thing is these two things have that little separator between them. We're going to use like a kind of cool CSS thing to do this. Like we could just say something like, this is my least favorite way to solve this problem, is I go, okay, cool, I have these two things. So I put a div in here and give it a class of divider and like give that a border. Like this, the absolute wrong way to do this. It's not content, and so it doesn't belong where the content is. Yep.
Can I ask you a question? And this is something I've struggled with.
Mhm.
Kind of trying to stay as far away as div soup as I can. It still almost feels like we're using div containers to flex and kind of, they're more there not because of content, but because of display.
A little bit. We're having to cheat a little bit here. So the way that you balance that is whenever you're using a div like that, give it a semantic name. These don't say anything about how it's supposed to look, and it helps us remind us that the reason that they visually grouped it that way is that those things do have a relationship with each other that's different than the relationship with these.
Okay.
And so that at least gets you staying in that mindset, which I think helps. Because if I take these classes off, even if I wasn't flexing them, I didn't need to access the classes. If I kill off all the classes on this, then this starts looking real confusing very quickly.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Now I just have some arbitrary fucking divs. I put those back in, and that's as good as a comment in explaining like why I did that the way that I did. All right, so in content actions, we want these to have separators between them. Cool. Do I have content actions already? Primary actions, no. What are they inside of? They're inside of primary actions. Content actions with heading. Content actions. So we're gonna do a little bit of CSS magic on this because we only have two things in there right now, but Corey had explore. We could have an arbitrary number of actions, and you don't want to have to redo the entire style sheet just because you added some content. So what I'm going to say is content actions, specifically ones that are not the last child should have a border right 2 pixels, solid. Then I'll use that same one that I used in the border up there. 229, 46, 42. And okay, that didn't do it. Okay, it didn't, oh, because it needs to be the buttons. That's the thing I'm targeting. There it is. Cool. I got a little buddy there now. Excellent. And here's the cool part of it. Let's say, oh, never mind, you're logged in now, so you have so many more choices. I can add a bunch more options to that, and all of them have that little spacer.
Okay, so that little spacer, that line is a border.
Yes.
Okay, and it's the thing I was confused about was the thickness of it, but it's based on the thickness of this.
I set this thickness there.
Not the thickness of the line, the
Mhm.
actual length of the line. That's that's inherited from the.
That's determined by, it's the border around this.
Okay.
So if I put the border around it entirely, like that, it looks like that.
Okay. So if we wanted to, let's say, like if we go back to the Quizlet website,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like theirs is. Let's just say it's actually a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm.
We would actually make the padding larger
Correct.
in order to make that line appear longer.
That's exactly what we would do.
Okay.
Also, if we're visualizing these as buttons, and they are, like, the definition of a button semantically is you press it to do an action, which is what both of these are. But if we imagine these as buttons, they're probably about that big. But like you just saw when I put the border around all of this, they're teensy tiny. So what I can do is say that all these buttons have a padding of not that much on top, 8 pixels. And then on the sides, maybe it's 24 pixels. So that's like a little bit too much on top. Okay, now we're kind of getting in the ballpark. Yeah, not fucking bad
Yeah.
for not having their typeface.
My project might look like Quizlet tomorrow.
Would it be dumb? Like, do you think we should struggle with like just regular CSS for a while, or
No.
that Sass is kind of nice?
It's real nice. Here's another thing that I'd do. All right, so let's refactor this a little bit. I've got a couple colors in there. So if I make the primary color, which is that purple, be this.
Oh, that's.
I didn't know you could declare things in CSS.
You can in Sass.
Oh.
You can actually do it in CSS now also, but I think the syntax is worse.
Oh, cool.
So we can do that.
Wow.
If I can say, is it primary border is that, and make this the primary border. So we can extract that stuff. We can do the same thing with sizes. We can just save these in variables. And what this looks like like over an entire app is you want to put it into a design system. So for example, on the Develop Denver site, all the typography for the entire app is in one place. And then anytime I want to use the primary header font, I use include, which is also a Sass thing. And it's just like copy pasting this in. So I define a mix in, and then I include it everywhere I want to use it. For the sizes, oops, shit. For the sizes for these, I have all of those in one place also, where it's, those are the different like scales and stuff used in the app. And then where's the place where I did a ton of them? Oh, the Flatiron Denver app. So for this one, like the colors, for example, I have 9 different shades to pick from for each of the colors. And like my black isn't a pure black. It's a little bit lighter. But I have all these different colors I can reach for. So much easier, because I can go, awesome, is this red too dark or too light? And then you can just move this up and down until you find something that matches, instead of calculating all these out by hand. Especially since these don't follow a consistent pattern. They have all the same hue, but you have to visually correct for like little slight changes. As you lighten and darken something, the saturation kind of needs to change along with it also. Stuff that's really light or really dark needs more saturation to account for it.
Write all that stuff out?
Yes. And then, shit, did it again.
What does it look like when it's incorporated into your like main?
Sure. So, and one more thing I want to show you. All the sizes in the entire app also. Same kind of thing.
Oh, that's so good.
Is that kind of like a style sheet?
It's like it's just variables for other style sheets. So like when that actually gets used.
I'm curious if they have stuff like that online pre-built that you could like.
Oh yeah, I didn't make up that scale. That scale's like a pretty popular one. But like, all right, for this link. These are on the these things right here. Those are components called box links. Background color, width, height, radius, background color, what's active. You just use those variables. So much easier.
I have a question about
Mhm.
the nav for the Quizlet site.
Yeah.
So like, when I like load it on mobile, I'm assuming, you mentioned a media query, I've never used that
Mhm.
before, but I could guess, but, so I noticed like when I'm looking at it, like I have login and sign up, I have like the account related things,
Mm-hmm.
and the search is pushed over, like how do you go about like doing that? Like,
Sure.
saying like, okay, there's less than 1,000 pixels, which is the width we said, and here are the elements I'm gonna sacrifice, if it's small. Or like how I wanna redo things.
Cool. So, yeah, we go down this small, we lose some stuff. We don't have that, what's it thing. Here's a way we could handle that.
Well, even if I like want to lose something on purpose, I guess is what I'm asking.
Mhm.
Can you create one? Like,
Yeah.
Specifically, yeah. Want to-
Totally.
Okay.
So, okay, for this create one, I give it a class of create. I'll give this one a class of search. All right, when the browser is small, I want this to go away. This is in content actions. Cool. So the create, I can say, actually I'll do it above this. At media, this is how you do a media query. And this is regular CSS. This is not a SAS specific thing. All right. What media? You go max width 400 pixels. So if I'm less than 400 pixels wide, then I want you to do whatever's inside here. So I can do something like display none. And now you see it, now you don't.
Awesome. And, okay, and then is that the same syntax for your CSS, or do you need to do a little bit?
This is
And how that nested?
exact same thing
Okay.
in regular CSS. So if we go media queries, you have all kinds of different tools you can use, and you can combine them and lots of other good stuff.
Okay, sweet. Thanks.
You can tell what orientation something's in. And then, yeah, if this is true, then whatever is inside of this, all those rules apply.
Oh. That's cool. Can you actually do, in between guys, 3?
Yep, correct.
Oh, that's so
It is.
Okay. I have a quick question.
Yep.
I'm having trouble getting my footer to stay at the foot.
Oh, of course you are.
all the
So,
time, and everything else flexes, but I think it has to stay.
cool. So let's find out why. So over here, I have a paragraph, and I put some legalese in here. And copy 2020 Quizlet. Oh no! Cool. Why is that happening? Yeah, the content of the page is only this big. There's no concept of like the screen or something. So, a few different ways we can handle that. An easiest way is probably to grid it. So for our app, we'll say display grid, and let's see, I'm not as fluent with grid, but I want 1 column, 3 rows. So I'm going to look at my wiki real quick. Grid. Cool. So then my grid template is going to be rows and columns. So 3 rows, 1 column. And then grid area. And then with grid area, you basically just drawing what the thing looks like. So you say header, main, footer, like that, I think. And then you need to give those names to, yeah, this is grid template areas. Yeah, okay, that's it. Grid. There's a lot of different ways to do it. This is like the most modern one. Header, main, footer, that. And then grid temp, and then it's grid template area, I think, for each individual one. So you'd say grid template area is header. Yeah. So we also want the footer accounted for. And we want the main area accounted for also. Okay, so we have those, and then the last piece we need to make this work is like, the document is still only but yay big. So we tell it we want the height to be 100 view height units. We want the width, the width is always fine. But this will make it so that the page, really min, would be better. The minimum height for this is 100 viewport height units. The viewport is like the thing you're looking at in the browser, and this works off of like percentage kind of things. So 50 would be half of whatever the current viewport is.
And you're declaring it an app there, but I declare it, like if I'm in your CSS within body, I just say body.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
All right, so we're in the ballpark. Cool, it did work though. So we probably, let's see, how does this work? And you also set the sizes of those. Man, CSS Grid is one of those things that while I'm using it, I can just kill. And then as soon as I'm not using it, I completely fucking forget how it works. Because yeah, we need to set the grid template to rows and columns. So we say auto, and then you say 1FR auto 1FR, I think. Cool. There you go.
Okay. So you got rid of the grid template 3/1?
No, and actually I can give it the same.
That footer is supposed to be its own function, or it's inside app? See how below
This?
the string of footer, yeah, is that its own function?
It's inside of app.
Okay.
It's not a function, it's a selector. I'm selecting footers that are inside of the app.
But I can't do that in CSS, though, can I?
Correct. The way you do that in CSS is like that. That's all this means. Footers that are inside of app.
And so what's the grid template you just laid out on?
Mhm.
Prior to that, you did have the 3/1.
Yeah, I totally did that wrong.
Oh, okay, all right. Just making
So
sure I remember correctly.
this is saying I have 3 rows. I
Okay.
want this to be however big it's going to be.
Yeah.
I want this to be however big it's going to be.
Uh-huh.
1FR is a like fractional unit.
Uh-huh.
So if I had a bunch of different rows on here, I could say, and I want them all to be exactly the same size.
Oh, okay.
or I want the middle one to be twice as big as the other two.
Okay.
But it'll maintain those proportions for you.
Okay.
All right, so, and then the last thing that we need to do is we're flexing the header a little bit right now and centering it. We can do that same thing with the footer and give it the same padding. And, well, justify content. Yes. And what else is in here? All right, so its child is this p tag, and I want that to have a width. Where was I doing the width? There it is. So the p tag inside of this should have that width. There we go. That's how you make sure that this stays down at the bottom. It's a way.
Yeah.
Another way you can do this is if this is a fixed height, you can say that the entire document should be 100 viewport height units minus whatever the height of this is. Or sorry, whatever the main is should be whatever. And just subtract out whatever the widths of the footer and header are.
Okay. What was that last jump between the footer was centered and then you targeted the p tag? You gave it a width of 900. Oh, I see. So the
Yeah.
p tag is huge.
Right.
And it's just the text is appearing at the very beginning of it. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And this huge thing is otherwise centered. And this thing is way bigger than 900 pixels.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool.
That's how I would approach recreating something like this.
This was awesome.
Oh, I'm glad. Questions?
How do you get started with SAS?
It's pretty easy. So it's even easier with Create React App, which you'll be doing next mod. But it's a command line tool. So you can npm install it, and then it's all you do is type SAS and then watch, and then whatever the thing you're supposed to be watching is, so like whatever you're typing your CSS is, and what the CSS you want it to output is called. And then this gets linked in your HTML. And then if you want to learn various CSS tricks, this page will walk you through just about everything you need to know. Variables, nesting, don't worry about partials, modules are fine. Mix-ins, that's like that fonts thing I was doing.
Yeah.
You can extend stuff. I've never done it. You probably don't need to either. You can do math a little bit easier than you can with CSS. If that's all you know how to do in SAS, that's plenty.
Yeah, the nesting is just so nice.
It really, really is.
Yeah.
Is it a good idea to, because when I was first trying to learn programming, I learned about media queries, and they'd have like, okay, the basics were, they were like the mobile first approach, and we'd start there with our media query at the bottom, and then we make another media query for like mid-sized tabs and another one.
Correct.
Would you in SAS, and this is repetitive, but nest media queries? So like for buttons, or like for certain elements and stuff like that, like, hey, when this reaches this thing, go ahead and change accordingly. That way, when you're like nesting inside of your SAS file, you can say, oh, okay, look, this button changes accordingly. It looks right there. Or do you want to have your media queries at the bottom? That was kind of a janky way to say that. But.
I'd actually, a lot of like your broad strokes media queries, you can do at the top level of the application. So on the Develop Denver site, in this general area, there's only one breakpoint on the Develop Denver site. It's just desktop and mobile. And so you can define these mix-ins like the grid system you want to use and then put the media query in that. And so every time I do include grid, it gets the media query for free. And really all it's doing is collapsing this from 9 columns to 1. And so you get a lot of shit out of that. And then little things I do inline. So for example, what's something that changes when it gets small? Probably this. Nope. Maybe a card. Like that alone ends up helping a lot with the
Collapsing of the columns and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then here you go. Here's one. So this button ordinarily on the 9-column grid starts on grid line 5 and takes up 2 of the grid lines. But I can't do that when it collapses down to 1 column. And so when it collapses down to 1 column, it just takes up the entire thing.
Right.
It's just be so nice to have like all your variables in that one SAS file and then just import them.
Hell yeah. What else?
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.